Welcome to another episode of our video series of the mechanics of human existence.
It's great to be back. I've really been looking forward to this one.
Me too. It feels like there's so much to unpack here.
There really is.
So let's just jump right in. The core question that our source material raises today is, it's a big one. Why is it that timeless wisdom, the traditional Nasihat, why does it seem so ineffective today? I mean, these are truths that have been around for centuries, but they just don't seem to land.
That is the absolute heart of the matter. And the thing is, the failure isn't in the truth. The truth itself is, well, it's constant.
Right.
The real issue is let's call it the internal infrastructure of the consciousness that's supposed to be receiving it. People keep asking what to do, but the real challenge is understanding how to transform.
So it's not about the instruction, it's about the internal architecture.
Exactly. And that brings us to this incredible metaphor you mentioned, the honey secret.
Yes, tell us about that. The idea that external information is like a poisonous liquid. That's a pretty strong statement.
It is. But think about it. In its raw state, data is just foreign matter. If you can't process it, your system has to expel it. It's poisonous in the sense that it's inert. It can't be integrated.
So how does it become knowledge? How does it become the honey?
It's not accumulated. It's created. The honey is made only when an individual takes that raw liquid and transforms it inside themselves for a specific purpose. It's a kind of internal alchemy.
An alchemy that needs a certain tool, I imagine. Which leads us to the concept of a call. Why is this so different from, say, the Western idea of reason?
It's a huge difference. Western reason or ratio is often about linear logic, computation, but a call comes from the root ekal, which means a bond or a leash.
A bond, so it connects things.
It's the context. It's the force that takes all these scattered raw data points and weaves them together into a meaningful pattern, like a carpet. Without a call, all you have is a pile of threads.
So if I read a dozen facts about history, my reason helps me categorize them.
Right.
But my akul helps me see the story they're all telling together.
Precisely. And that's our crisis today, isn't it? We're drowning in data, but absolutely starving for wisdom because our collective akul is failing.
Which brings us to why it's so hard to build that akul. Let's talk about the default setting, the natural consciousness. What are its defenses against this kind of transformative truth?
Well, this natural, survival-oriented self is all about protecting the status quo. It has three core pillars of resistance, three shields.
Okay.
The first one is ignorance, or Cehalet. But crucially, this has nothing to do with a lack of schooling.
No, it's an act of resistance, the attitude of, I already know.
That's it. It's a closed system. It protects the ego from the discomfort of complexity. If your world is simple, it feels safe.
Okay, so that's the first shield. What's the second?
The second is fanaticism, or Bağnazlık. This comes from a place of deep internal helplessness. The individual is afraid to stand alone, so they seek shelter in a group, an ideology, and authority.
They outsource their thinking to feel safe.
They outsource their entire identity.
Yeah.
And when that identity is challenged, you get the third pillar, brute force, Kaba Güç.
The aggression we see when someone's beliefs are questioned.
It's the explosion of frustrated fanaticism. When you can't defend your borrowed beliefs with intellect, you defend them with anger.
And this explains so much about how society works. You can't just present people with, say, nuanced constitutional law.
Yeah.
They're not engaging with the principle of the law. They're just approving or disapproving of the authority figure who presents it.
Exactly. And that inability to grasp abstract principles connects directly to another major issue the source identifies, the break with tradition.
Yeah.
The loss of respect.
You mean the shift away from respecting elders and ancestors as the primary reference point?
Yes. We've moved from that
Yeah.
to a culture of, well, some call it child worship. The immediate wants of the child become the guiding star, and that vital generational link gets severed.
Which brings us to a critical distinction, the one between love, sevgi, and respect, Saygı.
This is everything. Modern relationships confuse the two constantly. Love is the flame of the candle. It's passionate, beautiful, essential.
But vulnerable.
Very.
Yeah.
Respect. Respect is the lantern, the furnace that shields the flame from the wind. Without that protective structure of respect, love either burns out or becomes smothering.
So when you have a parenting style that's all intense, possessive love, but zero genuine respect for the child as a sovereign being.
You get the inevitable result. Continuous shaming.
Utandarilma.
The constant comparisons, the blame, the I will only love you if you achieve this message.
It's a psychological nightmare. It carves out a profound inner emptiness. and isbushlugu, where a sense of self-worth should be.
A black hole.
Yeah.
And the person then spends their entire life trying to fill that black hole with external things.
Wealth, fame, status, heroism, anything to patch over the void. But you can't fix an internal problem with an external solution.
So where does the real solution begin? If all that external advice fails, how do you start to rebuild from the inside? You have to seek out a provocateur. The guide, the murshid, their true role isn't to give you answers, is to create an internal crisis.
To create conflict. To introduce radical doubt.
Radical doubt. Because doubt is the solvent. It dissolves the false protective structures we've built. The antidote to that doubt can't be given to you. You have to find it yourself, within.
So the journey is about confronting that doubt head-on until you arrive at your own certainty.
A certainty about the fundamental questions. I am, who I am, why I'm here. The kind of knowledge no university can give you.
Okay, so to get there, we need to cultivate a new internal posture. What are the antidotes to those 3 pillars of resistance?
There are 3 corresponding internal qualities. To counteract ignorance, you need a scientific attitude.
Which doesn't mean knowing facts, it means focusing on method, on causality.
It's asking, how does this work, instead of what should I believe? It breaks the closed loop of the know-it-all.
And for fanaticism?
For fanaticism, you need philosophical understanding. This is the search for truth in its purest sense, that which is necessary, that which cannot be abolished. It forces you to step outside the safety of the group and ask what is undeniably true, even if you're the only one who sees it.
And the third, the antidote to brute force.
That is artistic sensitivity. Brute force is about rigid uniformity. Art is the opposite. It's the pursuit and appreciation of uniqueness. Ooh. Of the Birchik.
That singular, non-replicable quality. I know the source material warns heavily against being a mucolit, an imitator.
Yes. Because if you are just a copy, you are reinforcing that inner emptiness. You're implicitly saying your authentic self isn't good enough. You have to become your own singular work of art.
And to find that unique self, you often have to disconnect. The metaphor of going to the desert.
Exactly. Solitude, Helvet, isn't about being lonely. It's about calibration. You have to escape the noise of culture and family expectations to finally hear your own voice. It's in that silence that Yishmael, God hears, becomes possible.
Once you start hearing that voice, what's the ultimate vehicle for that transformation? The source is very specific about the art form.
It is. It's poetry, sure. It's considered the highest art because it bypasses the linear, logical mind.
It speaks directly to the unconscious.
The world of dreams, symbols, and deep emotional truth. And this all connects to that instruction to turn and become like a child.
Creative play.
It all starts with creative, structured play. Art is the only force that can truly, fundamentally convert and transform a person's character because it demands that you engage with the world in a new, unique, and nonlinear way.
So, to bring this all together for everyone listening, the reason wisdom doesn't stick is that we've confused love with respect. This has led to a kind of inner fragmentation that makes us unable to process anything deep or true.
And this isn't just a modern psychological quirk. It's seen as a historic, collective condition. The sources state that we've entered a time when 3 cardinal virtues have been withdrawn from the collective.
What are they?
Reverence, hermit, affection, mohabbat, and compassion, miramat. When these are withdrawn from a society, everything turns upside down.
So if these are gone from the collective, from public life, what is the mandate for us as individuals?
The duty is clear. We can't wait for society to fix itself. Our task is to consciously revive these virtues in our own personal lives. And you have to start with respect, the lantern that protects everything else. Grant it to those around you.
That's a powerful and practical starting point.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. We're often so afraid of being alone. We run from silence.
We confuse solitude with loneliness.
We do. But if you never learn to just be with yourself, to find what the mystics call the sweetness of solitude, how can you ever be sure that the love you're seeking from other people isn't just a desperate attempt to fill the void, a way to escape the unresolved conflict inside yourself? The real journey only begins when you realize you are both the traveler and the destination.